And let's move on to our last but not least speaker, Aaron Fu from Catalyst Fund, who's going to be talking about the African digital commerce opportunity. Aaron, hello.
Hey Igor, long time no see. Hope you're doing
Yeah,
well.
yeah, true, true. Can't complain.
uh, cool. So we have 20 minutes, right? Or 15? 15.
15, yeah,
Yeah,
15.
got it. Cool. Let me just try and share my screen. A second. Here we go. Cool. So I'm really afraid of coming last, also because I'm sure you've just been through a lot of great, cutting edge technology presentations. But I really kind of want to focus more on some results we've gotten from working with digital commerce startups across the continent, and what some of the opportunities there could be. As background, I'm part of the Catalyst Fund team. We invest in fintech across emerging markets, so Latin America, Africa, as well as India. And we recently have started taking interest in digital commerce, and so we've been doing a lot more research and deep dives into that space. Specifically, this work is together with the MasterCard Foundation in Ghana. So I'm sure, as all of us have noticed, life is a little bit different than it was 2 years ago. And we really think that micro merchants have been really impacted through this process. So, 92.2% of micro enterprises have reported decreased sales. And these really are the backbone of the African economy in so many ways. Lots of people have also lost work on the continent as a result. But so it's a pretty doom and gloom picture. So we wanted to come in and see what sort of the opportunity for digital tools would be to impact the situation. This was the program that we launched together with the MasterCard Foundation in Ghana. We'll be looking at working with 6 companies over the next 2 years with them. But to lay the foundations for what we wanted to do, we sort of spoke with almost 200 merchants across the Ghanaian landscape to really understand what was happening. So this first chart really is sort of like the uptake in P2P transfers in Rwanda. And you can see sort of like as we went from March 15 to 22, there was a dramatic uptake in P2P payments. And most of them are first time on mobile as well. So a lot of subscribers and a lot of users are on digital payments for the first time ever. And you can see that sort of like dramatic growth. Even though there was already a huge uptick before, this is sort of like easily 3 to 4 times what that uptick was before. So really excited at that uptake there. We also saw that e-commerce has really been really pivotal to determining whether or not a business succeeds or not, right? So we saw big players like Jumia report an increase in 50% in transactions during the first 6 months of the pandemic. This obviously is not news to us if we follow the same results in Amazon and eBay and in other markets. But I think what's really important is that if we look at businesses that are on Jumia or businesses that were on Paystack, how they were able to survive through the pandemic was sort of really night and day. And yeah, we really saw the potential for these e-commerce platforms to play a huge role in helping these businesses survive, and if not even just survive, but like continue to thrive, right? But what are these micro merchants and what are these merchants actually doing on these platforms? Through our survey, what we found was that most of them, unsurprisingly, were primarily using their mobile tools to access Facebook, WhatsApp to interact with their customers, mostly to advertise their products and to reach out to their customers in the first place. We also saw similar trends. It's also very similar in China, where 41% of consumers receive promotional offers via social media. So, it's not uncommon these days for, even the smallest of merchants to be reaching out to their customers via these channels. One survey that one of our partners did in Cameroon actually found that 88% of respondents had purchased items through WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is really becoming a sort of de facto commerce platform, especially in the markets that we've been looking at. However, most of these transactions, while they begin on WhatsApp and they begin on Facebook and they begin on these platforms in Africa, they tend not to complete on these platforms on the continent. So this was kind of a typical journey that we saw, honing down specifically in Ghana, where we saw MSEs really leveraging social media, WhatsApp, SMS, Instagram for marketing, for outreach. They seem really, really comfortable doing this, and this was sort of their default modus operandi. But we saw almost immediately after they reached out to their customers, it almost immediately went to a phone call, sort of defaulting back to sort of more dumb tools. But then again, it goes back into digital, right? So then it goes back into mobile money to accept payments, especially as sort of this reluctance to handle cash came to the forefront. Mobile money, again, has really taken over. So it sort of went online, offline, back to online again. And then back to offline again, because order and inventory management are then handled by pen and pencil, or at best in Excel. And then very interestingly, it goes very often back online to dispatch, right, for the logistics leg of things. So you see this process where a micro merchant is having to juggle digital platforms as well as physical platforms all the time. And found that really interesting, right, because it feels like almost broken. Which is why we've kind of broken our investment thesis into digital opportunities in Africa into sort of 3 key areas. The first one really are niche marketplaces, whereby, you know, obviously there is a huge appeal in being on Jumia or on a larger platform in Africa, which is sort of more of a super aggregator. But I think very often we see a lot of success as well in almost niche platforms that focus on, for example, agriculture or artisan crafts or creatives or music or something else that's a little bit more focused. So we're really interested in those platforms that have tailored their flows towards very specific sectors, and not just sort of like, you know, broader retail overall. Where we are also really excited at is this Sme Solution Stack, right? So as highlighted a little bit earlier, you know, the current micro merchant digital versus offline process is very disjointed. But at the same time, there are a lot of solutions out there, you know, like Oze, like Sumundi, like Kudigo, like Boost, who are really trying to bring that online offline experience integrated into the same digital experience. So taking everything from outreach to initial engagement to sales to order taking to logistics into the same platform. We really see an explosion in those solutions, and are really excited at the possibilities. And then finally, of course, you know, the goods still need to get to the customers. So we're also very excited at the potential for tech-enabled logistics, whether that's sort of aggregating supply, because that's also very disjointed right now, or optimizing supply of these deliveries, or even just being able to match more delivery riders with jobs, right? I think as you've seen the jobless numbers skyrocket, very often the sort of occupation of last resort is a delivery rider, right? So you've also seen a lot more supply come online. How do we more effectively utilize them? So these are sort of like 3 key areas for us that we're excited about in the digital commerce space, with sort of the Sme Solution Stack being one of the most interesting ones for us. But what do we mean by an SME solution stack? This is a great graphic prepared by the IFC, but it's really around a company called Tienda Pago in Latin America, where we really see these digital solutions being a bit of a bridge and a glue between like what's already happening in the ecosystem, right? We don't think there's so much going to, you know, disrupt commerce in the way we understand Amazon to have disrupted commerce in sort of the markets that it is sort of really strong in, but really sort of like facilitating commerce and almost being like an oil and a lubricant for the existing processes. So Tienda Pago really takes care of the full gamut of placing orders, digital payments, being able to manage inventory, And I think what it's been able to do is, because it manages inventory, it's also then able to have a good insight into the cash flows and I guess sales flows of the company, and then is able to offer credit. And through being able to offer credit, it's now then able to, really be able to almost accelerate the flywheel of the company to even buy more. It's also then able to like pass on savings of aggregated suppliers that they've been able to reach out to. So really sort of like, being embedded in a way that is natural to the SME while still adding value through digital tools. Obviously, what we've also seen is why haven't some of the more global players been successful in the African context when it comes to the SME solution stack. We think that specifically with the SMEs that we speak to in emerging markets, a lot of them have very specific preferences, right? So for example, there's a huge preference for cash still, and most global solutions out there very much focus on, non-cash, but we've still got to address merchants that still prefer cash. Very often there's a very weak logistics infrastructure in place. There's usually very poor addressing infrastructure in place. So how do you build around that? Very often credit solutions require you to submit some form of past business history, but very often most businesses, or most micro merchants in Africa certainly don't have those records, or certainly they're not kept in a very digital friendly format. I think the other thing to recognize, of course, also in a lot of merchants in Africa is that they're very much sort of blending their personal lives and their business lives. Very often you see them being run out of the same bank account. The business and the individual are really not separate. When something happens to the individual, something happens to the business. When something happens to the business, something definitely happens to the individual. So how do we build a solution that caters for that kind of profile, right? Where it really is sort of one and the same. And I think, a lot of, global solutions out there also try and, almost disintermediate the in-person interactions, whereby a lot of trade in Africa, especially at the retail level, is still very much preference towards in-person interactions, in-person selling. So therefore, we see a lot of opportunity there for very localized solutions to be able to address some of these challenges and problems. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity. 95% of enterprises in the world are SMEs. They're responsible for more than 70% of employment in Africa. So like I said at the beginning of this short presentation, micro merchants and SMEs are really the backbone of most trade that happens on the continent. Consumers and actually entrepreneurs themselves are more than willing right now to adopt digital solutions. We definitely saw in 2020, the ones that were able to adapt quickly, the ones that were tapped into online ordering, the ones that did tap into online logistics were the ones that were surviving. And I think stories of that have spread. And so therefore this willingness to adopt is now higher than ever. In conjunction with a range of government initiatives to sort of push more trade through digital channels too. So consumers are also more than willing to start moving to digital channels too. And yeah, initial evidence is really, really promising in terms of the potential for these tools to enhance business growth. So through Tienda Pago in LATAM, which obviously is not Africa, but we were already able to predict a sort of 25% increase in sales for merchants that use the platform. We're seeing very similar results, sort of 10 to 20% for the equivalent African platforms and the businesses that are on them. Obviously, it is an average. There are businesses that sort of grow 2 times, 3 times as a result of being on the platform, being able to access aggregated orders, being able to access credit, being able to take payments digitally. So yeah, this is kind of why we're really excited at the opportunity here, and why we think that digital tools for SMEs in Africa could be a really, really exciting place to continue investing in on the continent. So yeah, Igor, that was kind of all I had to really run through right now.
That was lightning speed. That was quick. Good job, Aaron. Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for the presentation. If we have any questions in the chat, please indicate them in the chat, sorry. And other than that, Aaron, thank you so much. It was really insightful. Thanks for sharing all this data. I really want to go through the slides once again myself separately, just to see what's happening. Really cool insights, really. Thanks.